All right, so we're back here, Athletic Lab channel, and we have another episode today that we're going to talk. Really, today's episode is going to be around just like mental toughness, how to properly train it, what it is, and the importance of just really doing hard things, which there's a lot of that in sports. So we're going to kind of get straight into it. Just in general, what are your thoughts with this topic? Just
Yeah, and we've discussed, but I've kind of, I don't know, not necessarily full circle. We talked a little bit privately about the pendulum swinging of, I don't know, a few years ago, where maybe even longer than a few years ago, where training was all about being tough
yeah,
and like pushing people and um, not necessarily having any goals specific for the athlete as far as energy energy system specific or strength specific. It's just about like working hard and really pushing it.
yeah,
And then the pendulum has really swung to being optimal,
sure,
as you mentioned, um, being optimal and where the conditioning or energy system demands of the sport. And football is the easy one in our background. But football, it's like football is 4 seconds or 6 seconds. You just need to train that and like a 30, 45-second recovery. And that's how training should be. And that there's no need, there's no benefit to doing different forms of conditioning for football,
sure,
especially like in the lactic system.
yeah.
So, and I was kind of more on that side of things. It made sense to me from a science perspective.
Yeah.
And definitely an aerobic base and things like that help. But the benefits of training toughness,
Yeah.
I've told you privately, I didn't think it had a strong carryover. I didn't think training to do things that suck in the weight room, like just a terrible example, but like holding a long wall sit
Yeah.
or holding a plank, and it's tough and you want to quit and you're just fighting like a game in your head the whole time, as we've done stuff like that before. And I was like, that doesn't carry over great to like executing well on 4th and goal, or that doesn't carry over well to like a tough situation in a game.
Sure.
And I've kind of like backtracked on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like whenever we have really any conversations, but especially a conversation like this, it's like I think it's important to clarify like what subset of people we're talking about, right? Because I think, like training like I train all high schoolers, right? So it's like a decent amount of the stuff that we do at least once a week, we try to hit something with most of the teams. Now, if they're in season, it's completely different. But if they're in an off season or preseason, like we try to incorporate some type of like challenge for these kids. You know what I mean? Both physically and mentally. Now, as you get into like college and professional, it's like okay, like that could be a little bit different. I think the more advanced you get in the sport that you're playing, I think the more appropriate it is to be a little bit more specific or optimal in your training, if that makes sense. But I'm always like of the viewpoint of like with high school kids, and I always just revert back to like the experiences we had when we were here. It's like, man, a lot of the stuff that we did like wasn't optimal in the sense of like it was definitely on the other end of the spectrum, as Steve spoke about, of just kind of like, hey, we're going to do some hard shit and we're going to like, you're going to have to get through it. And, there's, I think it's, again, gone back the other way to be more optimal, but I've always been kind of like, there's a lot of benefit to me in my head of just like doing hard things, even if, now that's not to say just doing hard things without any reason behind it. You know what I mean? I think you should always have a reason behind what you're doing. But at the end of the day, the way that I always put it is like training your ability to handle adversity in a controlled setting is, in my opinion, powerful. You know what I mean? The weight room is a controlled setting. We control what we do at all times, or at least the coach should, right? So weight, reps, sets, times that you're doing exercises for, how long the training session is, everything that you do as a strength coach or an athletic performance coach, everything in the weight room should be under your control at all times. But that's not to say that challenging somebody and pushing somebody in a controlled setting like the weight room, I'd much rather challenge that person in the weight room than have them face adversity in a game where it's much more chaotic and really not controlled. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't really control what the other team is doing or your opponent is doing. So I don't know. I've always been of the thought that the mental aspect of training, I think, is very important, at least with the high school setting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just think of, I truly believe that the only reason that I continue to work out and like am really in this profession and have stayed active over the last 15 years since we were in high school is like because I went to Snyder. You know what I mean? Like, and just because of the things that the Snyder, especially football program, instilled on us, just in terms of like, sounds cliche, but like hard work, like getting through difficult things, like being consistent in your training and all of that stuff, like you can carry over to your day-to-day life, even if
Yeah.
it's not a physical activity. Like there's a lot to be said of showing up to do something hard, especially when you know it's going to be hard, and especially when you have the whole week to try to justify why you shouldn't show up.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I think I have a few things written down here, but just a few things to kind of further that conversation is one, just the value of discomfort. You know what I mean? Like, one, kind of like we already mentioned, like you can relate it to everyday life, right? Like I talk to a lot of our kids about, some of the most difficult parts of as you continue to get older and grow up and become an adult is like decision making and like making a decision in a stressful situation. And especially situations or especially decisions that only you yourself can make. You can talk to your family, your coaches, your friends, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, there is always going to be decisions that you as a person has to make, whether it's athletic or not. And so I think being able to handle just the nerves that comes with that whole decision-making process, I think is relatable with some of the hard stuff that we do in the weight room. And I think, life is there's always going to be something in life that is going to be a challenge. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what it is, whether it's relationships, financials, stuff going on in your family or whatever it is, like there's always going to be some type of adversity present in your life. And again, I think just exposing yourself to adversity in a controlled setting and kind of seeing how you react, I think goes a long way in helping you learn how to deal with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And even just on like the making decisions, because making decisions can be very tough.
Yeah.
Like most people defer not to make the decision, but just doing things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, or like you get nervous for a situation, and kind of like you were talking about with high school athlete, you'd rather them face adversity here for the first time than go out into the playing field, face adversity, and they've never experienced it potentially
Yeah.
before. And that's probably not going to be a good situation.
Yeah.
But the number of times that since high school, definitely in high school because of being a part of this program, but since high school, there's things you're nervous about doing. You know it's the right decision. You know you need to do it. Moving across the country, taking a new job, going away for school, and it's like you're nervous.
Yeah.
Like that drive, I remember every time I drove to Miami for work, back and forth a couple times. Every time on that drive, I'd get nervous.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I'm doing this. Presentations.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about like presentations you've given, or even like the first day of school. I
Yep.
wonder how, I'd be interested to hear how you feel. But just being nervous before doing something. And it was actually a book you gave me. Man, I'm blanking on the author. It was called The Book.
Okay. It was
Alan Watts.
Alan Watts, yes.
And talking about like not, you're going to feel nervous and you don't have to run away from those feelings. You don't have to like justify it or try to talk yourself out of feeling nervous. It's just like I feel nervous and this is okay.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge thing in my life.
Yeah.
But being able to do the thing that you feel uncomfortable about doing.
Yeah.
Presentations, before like giving a presentation, it's like I really don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Even though I prepared for it and I know what I'm talking about and I feel very confident talking about it, like getting up in front of people can be tough.
For sure.
Then it's like, this is, like I'm supposed to feel nervous, this is okay, like I'm gonna be fine. If I screw it up, who cares?
Yeah.
And just moving forward with it. Do you feel similar with that?
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always going to be, and I haven't spoken as much as you have, but the few times that I have, it's like, yeah, you're going to feel those nerves. And, it's been a long time since I think either of us have competed in anything, at least sports wise. So sometimes you kind of lose track of how to handle those feelings. But similar to how what you're saying is like, and we talked about this a little bit last week, one of the hardest things to do in terms of like doing something that is going to suck or doing something that you don't want to do is the build up to it, right? Is like once you show up and get into the actual workout or whatever it is, it's like, yeah, like especially if you have teammates, like you can make it through some of that stuff if you have the right people around you or all of that stuff. But it's the whole build up to that event, right? Like, so every Thursday in the off season with our football team, our Thursdays are like mental Thursdays. So it's like, it's going to be physically and mentally challenging for the kids. And we let them know that. And like, they all know what type of workout Thursday after school is going to be. And it's incredible to see the excuses that kids come up with, like the most common one I use is like, yeah, I got to help my uncle move, at like 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. It's like, there's no way, bro. But like, the kids will come up with any type of excuse just to get out of that workout. And the kids that consistently show up to those workouts, I try to remind them of this because I don't tell them what we're doing on Thursdays. Kids will come up to me on every Thursday morning and be like, well, what we got today after school? No, and I'm not going to tell them. It's really between 3 or 4 different options of workouts that we're going to do. But still, kids ask me all day, and it's like, they know I'm not going to tell them. And I try to communicate with them that like, hey, one of the biggest like hidden benefits of this whole like mental day is like seeing if you're able to, live with those feelings, the nerves, the anxiety throughout that day and still show up.
Yeah.
You come to school at 7:30, 7:20 a.m. and you have until 2:40 that day to come up with any type of excuse. You're talking to your friends, your friends are skipping out or whatever it is. And you just have so many different options to kind of fall back on if you want to make an excuse to not show up and do it. But feeling those thoughts throughout the day, still deciding, bringing yourself to show up and actually get through that workout. I think there's, a ton of benefit of being able to handle, being able to handle those feelings that you feel when you're like, man, I know this is going to suck. You know what I mean? Because you think of, again, trying to revert it back to at least we're training athletes, right? So it's like, if you got a big game on a Friday or whatever sport you're playing, you got a big game on a Tuesday, it's like that whole school day, you're going to feel those nerves. You know what I mean? And sure, you're going to show up, hopefully, and play that game and not come up with an excuse. But it's like, if we can replicate that feeling of like, man, like this is going to be a challenge, this is going to kind of suck tonight, or, we're going to face some adversity in whatever we're playing or whoever we're playing. It's like, yeah, you have a lot of those similar feelings throughout the day as we lead up to these mental Thursdays, So I think that's something that oftentimes we look at the training in and of itself on these mentally challenging days, but I think I try to do a better job of emphasizing the importance of like dealing with those nerves and those feelings and showing up and still doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Did you, and I'll answer first, but did you have a stuff like that in high school as well. So for me, game day, not even the workout, the actual Friday night,
Sure.
school would get out, we'd have some extra time, then come back and get ready and hit the road. And I would be so nervous. Mind you, I didn't play,
Yeah.
you know, and I would be so nervous for every game.
Yeah.
I would just, like, you're feeling it in your body the whole day.
Yeah.
I would go home and take a nap in order to just, like, not think about it.
Yeah.
Like, just to try to, like, get away from it.
Yeah.
Workout-wise, like, there's definitely, like plates.
Yeah.
Or, like, game day, like, some of these tougher workouts where it's like, this is going to suck. Like, I
Yeah.
really don't want to do it. And I didn't even think about the amount of excuses you make in your head
Yeah.
and, like, ways to get out of it or, like, try to get out of it. That would go through your head back in the day.
Yeah.
Like, teammates that would, I gotta help my uncle move or
Yeah.
whatever, and, like, get out. Did you have stuff like that
Yeah,
too?
100%. And I mean, I'm in the same situation where, like, we didn't really play, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Especially in big games like that. But it's still, like, leading up to you know, all Friday, I would be nervous. And I think some of it is, like, knowing, like, hey, like, if one person goes down, you know, or gets injured, it's like, yeah, like, you're going to have to be, like, ready to go, you know what I mean? Because I don't think either of us were, like, fucking fourth string, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we were, if one person gets hurt, it's like, yeah, we're probably in the rotation, you know what I mean? And so that, some of that I think plays into it. But still, even then, it's like, I remember, I remember our first freshman football game was at Lures. Was it, right?
I don't remember.
I'm like 99% sure it was at Lures. And
I know we played lures at the beginning, or like
yeah,
first game,
of
so
the
that makes
season.
sense.
And I remember, you know, and I didn't, my middle school didn't have football. So, like, I hadn't played organized football ever.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, just on the bus, like, showing up, like, pulling into their parking lot. And I remember just, like, almost not really knowing how to deal with those nerves. You know what I mean? Like, where I'm like, fuck, man. Like, thinking to myself, like, what am I even doing here? You
Yeah.
know, like, I'm so nervous right now. And obviously, it ended up being, like, super fun. And, you know, afterwards, like, it feels great. But it's like, I just remember having those feelings and, like, you know, your mind going crazy and just not really knowing how to deal with those feelings. You know what I mean? So it's like, again, to kind of go a little bit full circle is like, okay, if we can expose those kids to similar feelings of, okay, I'm not going to play a game, but I'm going into the weight room and we're going to have a plate workout. And, like, everybody talks about plate workouts and how hard they are. And they are, but it's like, again, it's the same thing as riding the bus over and be like, man, like, I am just, like, freaking out right now. You know, it's a similar feeling to being like,
Yeah.
man, I'm going into my first plate day and everybody talks about plate days. And it's like, man, if you show up, even if the first couple times you really struggle through the workout and you quit during a set, or, you know, you have to make your reps up at the end, like, as long as you are able to deal with those feelings, like pre-competition or pre-workout, and show up and just try to be present, you know, with what's going on and try to get through it, it's like, man, that's really where a lot of the benefit lies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, like,
Yeah.
I still feel I try to at least once a week, like, do something that gives me a similar feeling to that. You know what I mean? It's not going to be that extreme, but, like, going on long runs, like, I always get a little nervous
Yeah.
before going on a long run.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So just being able to put up with those feelings, you know, and, like, dealing with those throughout the day, I think, you know, there's a lot of benefit to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so next I just had the thought of, like, you know, and this isn't just physical activity, but just in your everyday life, like, if you want to grow and make progress, like, you have to have some type of discomfort. You know what I mean? Whether it's, if you're trying to become a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer, like, you're going to have to, like, suffer through some studying and taking tests where you feel similar types of anxiety of a big test or a big exam, whatever it is. It could be, you know, obviously as an athlete, like, you have to get uncomfortable physically, but also, like, studying the game, right? Like, any situation that you want to grow in and become better at whatever it is that you're doing, like, if you always stay within your comfort zone, like it's going to be a struggle to make any progress.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's just the idea of like the importance of discomfort. Like discomfort is one necessary ingredient for growth.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
I told you I was going to take it somewhere earlier, but I think I'm going to go a little bit different, similar. It's almost like it might be a fact of biology or physiology. And we're familiar with this from strength conditioning, but stress plus recovery equals adaptation.
Yeah.
If there's any desired improvement or growth in any aspect of life, we understand it from lifting weights standpoint.
Yeah.
But if there's any desire to improve, get better, any adaptation you want in life, there has to be stress.
Yeah.
Like there has to be. And I think people in life often run from the stress part of it for a bunch of reasons that we've kind of talked about. But even from a physical, not athlete standpoint, it's like, oh, you can't do, or maybe even from an athlete standpoint, don't do that exercise, it's bad for your knees.
Yeah.
Don't do this, that's bad for your back.
Yeah.
Or it's like, okay, well, how do you get your knees capable of handling that? You have to stress it. You
Yeah.
have to do that exercise. I'm thinking squat, for example, but like, it's bad for your knees. And obviously we've come a long way from that thought.
Yeah.
But so are we just going to be vulnerable to that movement? Oh, we can never squat. You can't do anything in life. We have to sit down. And
Yeah.
It's like, no, you have to gradually stress that movement and your body will adapt over time.
Yeah.
Just be able to handle that.
Yeah.
Oh, you shouldn't. I'm trying to think of different examples.
Shouldn't sprint because you'll pull a hamstring.
Okay, then you gradually need to
Yeah.
expose yourself to that level of stress, because sprinting is a high level of stress on your system. You need gradual exposure to prepare yourself to handle that.
Yeah.
Just like anything in life.
Yeah.
I saw a Bruce Lee quote. It damn near was yesterday about I'm going to butcher it slightly, but don't pray for an easy life, or don't hope for an easy life. Pray that you're capable of handling a hard life.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't want to, even like from a parenting standpoint, not that I'm a parent, but you don't want to just put your child in this comfort bubble, because they're not really prepared to handle the real world.
Yeah.
Like you have to gradually, and everyone starts in a different spot. Everyone's comfort zone is different sizes and for different activities.
Yeah.
We know people who are like confident playing a sport, but not confident. Their comfort zone's tiny for public speaking or for singing, but there's someone who's really good at dancing and loves doing it. But man, if you put them in this sport, they'd be terrified.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there has to be that gradual growth.
Yeah.
And the only way that happens, like you said, you have to branch out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Now, if you go too far, stress plus recovery equals adaptation. But if it's too much stress, not enough recovery, it's an injury.
Yeah.
And this isn't just from an athletic standpoint, but in life, like just mentally, like if you are exposed to too much stress on your bone, it'll break.
Yeah.
But gradual stress on your bone with proper recovery, your bone gets really strong.
Yeah.
We're aware of this. If you're exposed to too much stress in life, I don't even want to go into like horrible examples, but you get like trauma and PTSD and all these other like real issues. But if you're gradually exposed to these things over time,
Yeah.
you can withstand a lot.
Yeah. It makes me think of like another good example is like people that are afraid to deadlift because they're going to hurt their back, you know? And I think of, I forget who it is that puts it up, but somebody puts up a lot of good, like almost like memes of like, I forget the setup of it, but again, it's like not sprinting because you're afraid to pull a hamstring. And then the opposite end is like pulling a hamstring because you don't sprint,
Yes,
you know?
yes,
or like
yes.
Not deadlifting because you're afraid to hurt your back, but you hurt your back because you don't deadlift or do any, training for your posterior chain. It's the same thing with like, and I think the key is, like you said, is just the gradual progressive overload, the progression of just like, of continually just like kind of just increasing the difficulty of whatever it's doing. Like, again, another good example is like spinal flexion and extension. You know, it's like you see people, you know, doing like deficit straight leg deadlifts with a rounded back at the bottom. I forget the actual word for the exercise.
Jefferson
Yeah,
curl?
Jefferson curl. See people doing Jefferson curls with like 315 pound, and it's like you look at that and it's like that's crazy, but the person that's able to do that probably started with 90 pounds, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
worked up to it.
Yeah.
So again, it's like you look at it, you know, as a beginner from somebody that has never done some of these movements, and you're like, man, like that is just insane. But the only way that that person has been able to deadlift that much, sprint that much, do that much on a Jefferson curl is by gradually just like increasing the weight or increasing the intensity that they do it. Like if I tried to Jefferson curl like 315, like there's no shot. You know what I mean?
And if you do get it, you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah, you're gonna feel it for sure. So it's just that kind of conundrum of the only way for you to become more resilient is to expose yourself to, you know, something that is going to challenge you.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems like common sense, but I feel like a lot of people don't think like that. They don't
Yeah.
realize that. You know, like it makes me think of like I've had a decent amount of injuries from jiu-jitsu, right? Like nothing crazy, nothing
Mainly ribs and stuff, right?
yeah, like I popped some ribs out. I popped both my ankles a couple times.
I know about the ankles.
Yeah, and it's just like again, it's nothing that really, you know, hinders my day-to-day activity. But whenever I'll pop, I popped. I think both of them at least once. I think one side twice. But it's like whenever I do that, it's like okay, I either have an option because I can't go in and train jiu-jitsu with a popped rib like that. So it's like okay, what do I have to do, right? Like, and I figured out and this is just through like experimenting, like what works for me. But like whenever I have something going on with my ribs, like I'll do my core for whatever workout I'm doing is just like a bunch of just like deep breathing in different positions. So like I'll do it like 10 or 15 deep breaths and like an upward dog where I am I'm like extended in the spine and like the ribs are poking out. And then I'll do 10 or 15 breaths and just like a quadruped, like an all fours position with your knees off the ground, right? Like just trying to expand, do that stuff, do it on a side plank. The side plank is the one that hurts the most, you know, on the side that you pop it on. But again, it's like you do a gradual increase. Like I don't do a full plank, you know, I'll probably first 2 weeks, I'll do a plank, like a side plank on my knees and just focus on like breathing and expanding into that position and just getting it used to the new position that it's in. And like when I do that at first, it sucks, but I find that if I don't do that, my rib almost gets worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing like with my ankles. Like whenever I get an ankle popped, it's like, okay, that next week, like if it's bad enough that I can't train for a week, like I'll go in and I'll do, you know, whatever I can do in my normal workouts, but then I'll do a ton of like lower leg stuff. And even sometimes it's as simple as just like holding a single leg RDL for like 30 seconds, you know, or doing like, as I get a little bit more comfortable doing like some ankle hops and like stressing the ankle a little bit more. But I find that the more that I challenge that injured area a little bit, the faster it recovers. You know what I mean? Whereas if you don't, I think that's a lot of, we kind of drives us crazy whenever a kid gets hurt, not in the weight room, but like at practice or outside or wherever. They'll come in with a doctor's note and it's like, doctors automatically, not all of them, but most of them that we see, they automatically go, okay, you got to take 2 weeks off, you know? Like I think that's just their quick way of, you know, hey, rest, you know, take it easy, this, that, and the other. And it's like, okay, like, I mean, I can kind of understand why that's their decision or why they decide to do that. But then it's also like, that's probably not the best thing for this person to do. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't want to do anything super intense, but like just small little stress to that area is probably going to go a long way in the long run of, you know, preparing that person for getting back to lifting or competing or whatever it is.
It's like I think it's the super compensation curve. Again, we've seen this in all of our textbooks in college, but like from a basic workout perspective, I want to get stronger.
Yeah.
I do a bunch of push-ups. I technically get weaker. I rest, I eat, I sleep. A couple of days later, I'm stronger. I can do more push-ups.
Yeah.
I do a bunch more push-ups. At the end of the workout, I'm weaker.
Yeah.
Like if I do as many push-ups as I can, rest, do as many push-ups as I can, by the end of the workout, I'm doing a lot less push-ups than when I started.
Sure.
The next day, I'm sore, like I'm down here. I sleep, I eat, I recover, I come back stronger.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. Like you talking about the rib. It's like, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's literally like, makes total sense.
Yeah.
You hear I hear in my setting with physical therapists, talking to patients, whatever they're coming back from, whatever exercise they're going through, like how'd that feel, scale 1 to 10, what was the pain level? And if it's too much, oh, okay. Like, that was like a 7? Okay,
Yeah.
let's pull back. And with kids, and you get this, anything's like a 10. It's
Yeah.
like, no, 10's like, we gotta take you to the hospital.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but it can't be a 0 either.
Yeah.
Like or else we're not making progress.
Yeah.
It has to, and I hear them say like, we want it around a 4.
Yeah.
Like there's gotta be enough stress, and you come back the next day and you're stronger. There has to be stress. There's literally, I can't, no pun intended, stress this enough.
Yeah.
If there's no stress, there's no adaptation. I think that's a Joel Jameson quote.
Yeah.
He's like, I heard it in a podcast years ago. If there is no stress, there is no adaptation.
Yeah.
You have to. If you want to get better at anything, there has to be stress.
Yeah. I mean, that's about as simple as you can make it, but that's how it is, you know, that's a fact, you know, like, it just like, I think there's a lot of, you have different options in terms of how to face discomfort. You know, it doesn't always have to be physical activity. Like I think of like, you know, like this is a different type of discomfort, but like meditating. Like, man, I've been meditating for years, and it's like that is the exact opposite of physical activity. Like you're literally sitting there and just like focusing on your breath or focusing on whatever it is that whatever type of meditation you're doing. But it's like, to me, like that is uncomfortable, you know, especially in this day and age when, you know, we always have our phones, we all have something distracting us or something to entertain us. And it's like, man, if you can sit for 15 minutes and with your eyes closed and just breathe and like try to be as present as you can, like that's uncomfortable for most people.
And then just to dig into it a little bit, because I'm curious, typically, what do you do in your meditation? Do you focus on your breath? Do you focus on clearing your mind, not thinking of anything? Do you focus on a certain word, you're looking at? What do you typically do?
So I like to do, what I find the most benefit with is just like mindfulness meditation, which is literally just like you sit in a place, you close your eyes, and really the biggest objective is to, because I'll try to sit for 15 minutes each day. I don't always do it, but that's my goal. I'll try to sit for 15 minutes each day. And within those 15 minutes, my goal is to, one, focus on my breath, right? That should be my main focus point. Your mind obviously is going to run. You're going to start thinking about things. So main objective is to, okay, one, focus on your breath. Two, when your mind does wander or starts thinking about things, being aware of that, noticing that, hey, I'm not thinking about my breath right now. I'm thinking about what happened today in class or whatever it is. So that's the second thing, is noticing that. And three is just bringing your attention back to your breath. It doesn't have to be your breath. It could be, like you said, some people do mantras. Some people will listen to music and focus on that. Some people will focus on, you know, how their feet feel or whatever it is, you know, just something that you have a focal point and something to focus on. Inevitably, your mind is going to start to wander and start to think about X, Y, and Z. But I think the gold is really in the skill of, again, being able to notice that your mind wandered, and two, bringing your attention back to whatever your focal point is.
Okay. I really love this.
Yeah.
So you're calling it a skill, which I think makes total sense. The focus on, we'll stick with breath, is, as you mentioned earlier, uncomfortable. And kind of, I mean, uncomfortable, we can just, is a stress.
Yeah.
It's difficult, it's not easy. But it's a skill, and just like any skill, you probably got better at it over time.
Yeah. Yeah. It really is, like, a lot of people will talk of it like you're training your mind muscle. You know, you're training a muscle in the sense of the more you do it, the better you get. And I've had instances where like, I'll do it really consistently, and like I've gotten relatively good at just like for a 10-15 minute period of being able to just like not worry about anything else outside of what's going on in that moment. Like lately I haven't had that feeling of like of just being like fully reaching, like a focused state. But sometimes you'll get there and it's like, man, and this isn't even really on this topic, but it's crazy to just, you get to a point where, you don't have to give energy to every single thought that pops up in your head. You know what I mean? Like you can make a decision to just observe those thoughts and let the thoughts pass by. Whereas the natural thing to do, or at least in this day and age, is to, you think of something and you want to put energy into it. You want to investigate what that is, or you want to go further with that thought. And that's when you start to like just lose the focus of whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Right. But it's when you're able to recognize that and pull yourself back into whatever your focal point is, it's like there's a lot of benefit to that. And I think if you can reach the point, at least in terms of meditation, if you can reach the point of just letting those thoughts go and just getting to the point where like, I almost think of it, this is weird, I have a lot of different analogies that I think of when I meditate, but I almost think of it like in the sense of like, think of your mind, right? And like at the bottom of your mind, if you have a valve, like a almost like a sink, and you just like at the beginning of the meditation, if you open that valve and like let all your thoughts just like flow out of your head and just try to empty your mind, really is what it is. You get to the point where like, okay, if you keep that valve open, whenever a thought comes in, you can either close the valve and put energy into that thought, or you can keep that valve open and just let it flow through and let it like pass,
Yeah.
And like if you're able to get to that point of just like sitting there and breathing, and you have a thought pop up that usually would take you on a 5-10 minute daydream, and you figure about it, but and just let it go, and like watch it go, and like you get to the point where your mind is almost like empty. You know what I mean? Because I think a lot of times we get used to just all the constant chatter going on in our head. And it happens for so long that we think it's the norm, but it's not. Like that's not how it should be. We shouldn't always be thinking of X, Y, and Z. Like I hear a lot of people talk about like, I have trouble sleeping because like I can't shut my mind off. Like I just lay in bed and think about X, Y, and Z. And it's like, I think that's common. I think that's normal. But it's like, again, building up the skill of being able to like, hey, I recognize that these thoughts are in my head, but I'm not going to worry about this right now. Like I'll think about this tomorrow, or this stuff really doesn't even deserve my energy, so I'm just gonna let it go. If you never train that skill, it's like, yeah, I understand why you struggle falling asleep at night, because you're just sitting there just thinking about, what that one person said 2 weeks ago, that's like, it's like irrelevant stuff that doesn't matter at all.
Crazy how that goes.
But again, it's just like anything else. It's a skill that you can get better at. But if you never train that aspect, like, yeah, you're gonna have a monkey mind. They call it a lot in meditation, like monkey mind, where it's just hopping around all over the place, and it's like for 10 seconds you could be thinking about the NFL draft, and then 20 seconds later you're thinking about the wedding that we went to yesterday, and then for the next 3 minutes you're thinking about the ex-girlfriend that you had that broke your heart, or whatever it is, and it's like,
we're going there.
before you realize it, you're like, bro, what have I even been doing for the past 30 minutes? I've just been thinking about things that have no relevance towards my life at all.
Yeah. And then, so to bring it all back, I like how you described it as a mind muscle.
Yeah.
You used a couple of mine, like the letting it like flow.
Yeah.
Or the monkey brain. But it was at Andrew Huberman podcast.
Okay.
We had David Goggins on. Have you heard or read the book?
Which one? First or second?
First.
Yeah, I listened to it.
Okay,
Yeah,
I listened to it as well. And basically the podcast is David Goggins. The podcast is similar-ish to his book, where he's just giving his life story and like the crazy shit he's done to where he's at now. And it's funny because Huberman is such a like nerd.
Yeah.
And I say that in a loving way. That as David Goggins like tells the story, and then Huberman will like, okay, well that was this part of your brain, and you had this
Yeah.
dopamine, and it's like, it's entertaining. I enjoy that stuff.
Yeah.
But he talked on that podcast, Huberman, about a specific area of the brain
Yeah.
that grows from discomfort.
Yeah.
Doing things that, or I should say, doing things that are uncomfortable and like constantly like doing more and more difficult things.
Yeah.
And it's not like, ooh, working out is hard. So the more I work out, the more I grow that brain, part of my brain. But then by the end, you pretty much love working out.
Yeah.
No. It has to be uncomfortable. It's like you probably enjoy working out for the most part.
Yeah.
But your long runs or whatever days that you're talking about is, it still makes you nervous.
Yeah.
Still a little difficult. I remember when I was running a bunch last year, there are definitely days that's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And like you're just fighting yourself, or you're mid-run and you're like, I could slow down the pace. This really
Yeah.
sucks. I could stop. I can break this up into 2 sets. Like you're thinking of ways to get out.
Yeah.
And sometimes, truthfully, your mind wins. And sometimes you can beat it.
Yeah.
And that's a fun feeling for me. Anyway, doing uncomfortable things like that, you literally grow that part of your brain.
Mm-hmm.
Just like any part of your brain can develop and grow at any age. If you focus on like playing a new instrument, you'll see the motor cortex, like I'm playing the piano right in this moment. You'll see the visual cortex over time grow.
Yeah.
That has to do with not visual cortex, motor cortex, part of your brain that deals with controlling your hands.
Yeah.
Will get bigger. There's a ton of studies on this sort of stuff, but yeah, I think that's a perfect way to put it. You're working that muscle, because muscles are adaptable and so is your brain.
Yeah.
Just over time, progressing the difficulty of the task.
Yeah. And that's how, in that same book, David Goggins' book, I used this example a couple weeks ago with some of the kids on our Thursday workouts. It's like, I think a good analogy that he has is just like callousing the mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like when you do pull-ups and when you deadlift and, you know, a lot of different exercises, like you build up calluses on your hands,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like the first couple times you do it, you're like, man, my hands hurt. Like
Mm-hmm.
this sucks. They hurt for the next day too. But then the more you do it, the more you build up those calluses. He talks about the same thing happens with your mind. Like, okay, the first 3 or 4 times you go on a long run, and long run, I should probably clarify. My long run is like 45 minutes. Like that's a long run for me.
Yeah.
So it's like you go on that long run for 45 minutes, first 3, 4, 5 times, like it's going to suck. Like it's not going to be fun. Your mind's going to be telling you all different types of things. But the more you do it, not only are you physiologically getting better, like you're getting in better shape, but you're also, I think if you're trying to at least focus a little bit on that of just like recognizing, hey, I know my mind's going to tell me this, and even before the run, I know this is what's going to go down in my head, or at least some of what it is.
Yeah.
And just being able to, again, similar to like a meditation, like being able to recognize those thoughts, recognize that that's all they are. They're just thoughts. And if you don't give it any energy, like just focus on your breathing, you know, same thing with meditation and running. I do that a lot when I run, is just focus on my breathing and just let it go, you know?
Yep.
So I think that's I know what you're talking about. I've seen that clip of them talking about, I forget what part of the brain or what the name of the part of the brain was, but yeah, it's just, again, I think the analogy of callousing your mind is like super powerful, at least in the physical activity setting, because everybody knows what it is to get calluses on your hands, right? And it really is. I mean, it's the same exact thing for when you're doing hard shit.
100%. And I, as you just said, love the analogy of it, because I guess first, my girlfriend, whenever she sees like, I mean, my hands are pretty ripped right now, but just calluses, she's like, it's not good. It's not good. I'm like, no, you don't understand. That actually is a good thing. Or else, and we'll get to it. And like kids, as you were talking about, or when you first start working out, holding barbells, your hands are sore, they're red, like right afterwards, and then your hands start to callus. At least with me, working with some of the high schoolers, they're like, or middle schoolers, like, oh, my calluses hurt. So like, oh, I hate getting calluses. They hurt. I'm like, there's no first, the callus doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Like it's literally a physical barrier to protect you. It's a thicker pad of skin
Yeah.
to keep you from getting hurt. So it's slow accumulation of stress, gradual stress over time that protects you, makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And the too much stress, probably like as kids, I'm thinking of like going out and raking the leaves in the fall. You don't rake leaves, but like twice.
Yeah.
Each year, you got like 2 big rake days, and you come inside or the next day and you have blisters.
Yeah.
A blister is an injury.
Yeah.
Like it was too much stress. But the callus, that's like a protective layer.
Yeah.
And same thing with like breaking a bone. I always think this is interesting. Have you ever broke a bone?
I broke my pinky once.
Oh.
That's it. Yeah.
I broke this bone from punching a couch.
Damn.
Yeah, that's not a story you want to tell people, but a couch. But anyway, you break a bone and then they reset it and you probably get casted and whatever, and then you gradually have physical therapy. Well, I didn't, but like certain situations.
Yeah.
Anyway, the part of the bone that broke, you probably already know this, part of the bone that broke, that specific spot will actually grow back thicker
Yeah.
than the rest of the bone.
Yeah.
It's like, in that case, it's too much stress. But stress, you give it some recovery, you give it some nutrients, and it comes back stronger.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. I love that.
Yeah, especially like I remember hearing about, and this is a little different, but I remember hearing about like Derrick Rose one of the times that he tore his ACL, and like, you know, watching like a small little clip of him, like through his rehab and coming back to play, and it's like they talked about how, you know, when he came back, he was stronger, he was jumping higher, he felt better, you know, after all of that. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the rehab and the focus on strengthening that area, but still, it's like, it's kind of crazy to think about. Like
Yeah.
you come back, if you do it right, you should come back stronger and more prepared to play your sport after an injury, depending on the injury, but after the injury than you were before the injury.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think to go back to the callus example, it's like, you know, you continue to lift weights each week, like your calluses are going to get a little bit more and more built up. Same thing with your mind, but then it's also on the flip side, if you don't work out for a couple weeks, or if you don't go on that long run for a couple weeks, like you're going to lose some of those layers of skin.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, man, like I mean, if you've already built up that strength or that endurance, it's that much easier to get back, which is a good thing. But still, it's like, you take a couple weeks off due to whatever it is, like you're going to lose some of that callus and you're going to have to build that back up.
Yeah.
You know? So it's just, I don't know. This could probably be like a 5-hour episode to just talk about this stuff. But it's like, I think of just to kind of reel it back into at least what I had here is like,
Yeah.
you know, again, like there's a lot of different ways to get uncomfortable outside of physical activity. But I think using physical activity as the vehicle to get uncomfortable is a win-win, right? Because it's like, one, you're getting in better shape, you're working out, you're getting healthier, you're getting blood flowing through your body. So that's a positive in and of itself. But then if you can, you know, combine that with, you know, doing hard things that are mentally challenging as well and build up those calluses and you know, expose you to that adversity, it's like, it literally is like a win-win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm not against, obviously, other ways of getting uncomfortable, but I think we're biased just in our what we do for work. But it's, yeah, like physical activity to me is just like one of the best ways to get uncomfortable in controlled settings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let me see what else I had here. Trying to think. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but like just to hit on like the trap of comfort is what I called it here. So it's like in this day and age, it's so we're spoiled. You know what I mean? Like we live in probably the best time for a human to ever live.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like we all have phones, we have iPads, we have air conditioning, we have food at every corner, we have the internet, we have literally everything we could ever want, you know. And it's like it's so easy to fall into the trap of comfort, that I think it's even more important to make a conscious effort to, again, continually make yourself uncomfortable. And like, to me, like, that's what I was saying before Coach Hop walked in, was I try to do at least once a week something that is going to kind of give me a little dose of that feeling of like, man, this is gonna suck. Like, I know this is gonna suck, but I know I have to show up and do it. So long run, we already talked about that. But jujitsu is like, bro, I've been training jujitsu for over 5 years now, and it's still like, whenever I go to a class, like, I still have just a little bit of like, because I know there's gonna be someone in there that's gonna whoop my ass. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I think that's one of the biggest challenges of starting just jujitsu, or really any martial art, is probably like the knowledge of like, okay, like, I'm paying a membership and I'm driving to this gym to go get beat up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not a good feeling, to go in there and to get beat up. At least at first it's not. But you learn to kind of enjoy that. And that's something that I think you have one of two reactions to, at least with jiu-jitsu, right? You see it all the time. People will come in and try jiu-jitsu, and come in there, it could be the biggest guys ever and the strongest guys ever, and they're in there. If they've never done any training, like, they're going to get their ego hurt. You know what I mean? Which everybody does when they start.
Yeah.
Yes, quick. And it's like, you either, one of two reactions, you either are like, man, like, forget this. Like, this isn't for me. Like, this is, I don't enjoy this. This isn't fun for whatever reason. Or that's the feeling that keeps you coming back.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that same feeling of getting your ego hurt and realizing that you're not as, good at fighting or whatever it is as you were. It's like that same feeling is either what gets people hooked to jiu-jitsu or makes people run away from jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And I don't know what the differentiating factor is between the people that jump all the way in and the people that run away from it. But again, like, for my first year of training jiu-jitsu, like, I remember, this is when I was out in Oregon still. I remember just like purposely like showing up to the gym early and just like sitting in my car for a couple minutes and just being like, just readying myself to go in. You know what I mean? And be like, again, it's the same thing of like, I know this shit's going to suck. Like, this is really going to suck. Not only am I going to be gassed, but like, I'm going to go in there and literally get like manhandled by another human being. And it's, again, being able to just sit there and just like feel those feelings and like, all right, fuck it. Like, I'm going to go in here and do it anyways. That's the only way that you're going to get better at any activity. But to bring it back to like, my main point was like, we're so used to comfort that, for me at least, like, if I don't do something at least once a week that gets me a little bit uncomfortable, like, I just start to feel off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know, maybe, I don't know where that comes from. I really don't. But I'm glad I have that, because again, it keeps me like continually just chasing that. I mean, I got that shit tatted on me.
I was going to say,
like,
this is a perfect podcast for a person that has seek discomfort very prominent on his leg.
And I have people like at jiu-jitsu that are like, man, I love that tattoo. That tattoo's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, like, this is one of the most uncomfortable things that I do on a weekly basis, is to come in here and like roll around with a whole bunch of sweaty men. You know what I mean? But just, again, the importance of discomfort, we've already covered that. But on the flip side, the trap of comfort, of the more, it's almost like a Chinese finger trap, right? Like, the more you pull, the tighter it gets. Like, the more comfortable you get, the harder it is to get out of that comfort. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and on a same topic, but not strength conditioning related at all, I think strength conditioning, you talked about like using exercise as a vehicle to go through discomfort and callous your mind and things like that. I think the things we learned in school and, practicing strength conditioning just relate to so many other things outside of a weight room.
Yeah.
So dealing with different temperatures.
Yeah.
Dealing with different temperatures. There's heat shock proteins, and there's different enzymes in your body that deal with either hot and help your body deal with extreme heat or higher temperatures, and same for cold.
Sure.
And over time, you know, you mentioned we have AC, we have heat, we control. My house is 72 to 68 every day, year round.
Yeah.
It always is, and or maybe 65 in the winter. I like it cold, but anyway, we set it to what's comfortable. We set
Yeah.
it to what we want, and if you don't get exposed to those hotter temperatures, use it or lose it. Like your body's like way of pruning and getting rid of things that cost energy and take up space that is a waste for your body.
Yeah.
If you don't expose yourself to these hotter temperatures, you lose those proteins, literally, that help your body deal with that heat.
Yeah.
If you don't expose yourself to cold, same thing. And I think a good example of this is, I'm thinking specifically my mom, don't tell her, but just older people in general,
Yeah.
is it has to be this temperature.
Yeah.
They go outside, and if it's too hot, they feel it. It's
Yeah.
like it's too hot for them. Oh, it's so hot. And it's like, it's fucking 75. Like,
Yeah.
it's not bad.
Yeah.
Or whatever. It's just sunny. Like, calm down. Or they go outside and it's cold, and it's just, it's so cold. I had someone that will remain unnamed, older, tell me that when they were younger and older people would complain about the cold, they're like, you're just old.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're just old. Now that this person's older, it's like, oh no, like, it's different. It's different when you're older. It's just like you feel it different. It's like, no, you just haven't been exposed to it.
Yeah.
And like your body's lost the ability to deal with it.
Yeah.
So to try to come back full circle, if you stay in that, I always think of it as a circle, like your comfort zone can shrink and expand. If you stay in your bubble, if you stay comfortable with mentally in different circumstances, or from a exercise perspective or temperature or anything,
Yeah.
if you stay in here, that bubble will just shrink. Because I don't know this for certain, but if you hang around the edge of your comfort zone, I bet it expands.
Yeah.
As soon as you get a little bit outside of it, for sure it can expand. You get too far, injury.
Yeah.
But if you stay just right in the middle, why is your body going to be prepared to deal with the stuff around the edges?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like, it's just going to shrink.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super easy to remain in our comfort zone. There's a good book. Damn, I'm blanking on the author. It's called Comfort Crisis.
Okay.
It's a great read. It's this guy like went up into the frozen tundra of Alaska.
Okay.
He's not like a skilled adventurer.
Yeah.
But he went with skilled people, and they hunted caribou, and that was only like, maybe they had some like military packed food, and so he tells that story and like weaves in like the science of discomfort and like how the Japanese did it and how the people in Greenland did it and how they're so resilient now. And it's a good book. But yeah, if you don't get outside of your comfort zone, it'll just shrink on you.
Yeah.
And then my last thing that just popped in my head, and again, I'm blanking on the name. There's some, I want to say researcher. I don't know if it's like Angela Duckworth or like a Carol Dweck, and it might not be, that said aging is the progressive, or the pursuit of comfort.
Okay.
So like the only way, I'm butchering this somewhat, but as you pursue more and more comfort, that's how you get older.
Yeah.
Like the more you stay outside your comfort zone and push the boundaries and progress that, the younger you stay.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting perspective.
Well, and that fits into, again, just like the idea of like the comfort trap, right? Like, if
Yeah.
you think of your comfort zone is here, and like you're saying, if you're just right in the middle, like that's literally like, it's going to shrink. So like, what would that look like, right? If you stay right in the middle of your comfort zone, that to me is like, you know, being in a routine each day that doesn't involve any type of discomfort, really.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to work, you do your job, you go home, you eat, you lay on the couch, you watch Netflix, you might hop on a game, you go to sleep, you wake up, you do the same thing. You do that for months on end. It's like, yeah, that is going to not slowly, but that is going to start to shrink, and it really is like just almost trapping you
Mm-hmm.
in your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And like you said, it's like if you kind of go around the edge of your comfort zone. And again, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It doesn't have to be,
Probably shouldn't be.
yeah, especially at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like you can go, for some people out there, like a 10-minute walk is outside of their comfort zone.
Yes.
So it's like, if
Yes.
that's you, if that's that person, it's like, yeah, you don't need to go, 50 feet outside of your comfort zone and go run a mile. It's like, dude, like start, like just dip your toes into like getting a little uncomfortable. And this is one of the biggest things that we tell the kids, especially on Thursdays, is like we are looking for the discomfort. Like that is what we want. Like a lot of times, and I think of this again on long runs, like a lot of times you get to that 20, 25, 30-minute mark and you're like, man, like this is really starting to suck. You know what I mean? Like if you're able to tell yourself and keep in mind that like the whole reason that we're doing this workout, whatever it is to reach this point of discomfort,
Yeah.
and then see how you react to that discomfort or that adversity. Like that's really one of the main things that we're trying to get out of doing that hard stuff.
Yeah.
Is not only feeling it and like sitting in that discomfort, but also again, like we tell the kids all the time, like how we want to see how you react to that discomfort. We want to see, because it's, especially with kids, right? Like it's super easy. The majority of kids will, when they feel that, they're either going to try to skip a couple reps, or they're either, going to kind of try to come up with an injury of something that happened that will get them out of it. But they're going to try to find some way to make that discomfort less uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can get the thought into their head, like going back to one of the first things you said, is like not running from that fear or running from those negative feelings, but just like accepting it and realizing like this is the goal of the workout. Some workouts we're trying to get, a better squat. Some workouts trying to jump higher, sprint faster, whatever it is. Some workouts, like the objective of the workout is to feel that discomfort and see how you react.
Yeah.
Because again, we tell the kids all the time, it's like, not only in life, but in whatever sports you play, there's going to be situations that like, like who we refer to it as a fray a lot, where you're in the fray and there's like a whole bunch of shit going on, and like it's a big moment, it's a big game, and there's, someone has to make a play, and it's like, you can't really ever fully train for that moment, or at least replicate that moment, but I guess you can train similar aspects of being like, when you're doing a hard ass plate day, and we're doing like straight leg sit-ups, and we got to get 12 of them in, and the first time through someone skipped a rep, so we make you restart. The second rep through, only half the people are counting, so we make you restart. Like when you have to restart 2, 3, sometimes 4 times on an exercise because someone is messing up, how are you going to react? A lot of kids' first reaction is to cuss that kid out and to get on him in a way that's not good, right? But again, it's like if we can, one, recognize that and bring awareness to it, and then train that ability of, hey, when someone makes a mistake and they jump off sides, or it's a false start, or someone drops a wide open pass, like this is all football stuff, but whatever it is like, how are you going to react? Like, are you going to, you always, you see the clips of like D linemen jumping off sides and like linebackers just smacking the shit out of their helmets, like, it's like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like, how is that person going to react to it? So there's a way to go about handling somebody messing up, and there's a way not to go about it. And so again, I think just baking all of that into like your mental toughness training, I think goes a long way. But I think it works the best as long as you communicate that with the kids. You know what I mean? And this kind of leads into the next kind of thing that I have here, is just like the correct way to train mental toughness, and just being open about there's a way to do it and there's a way not to do it. You know what I mean? I think a lot of times, especially old school, like hard ass workouts, like a lot of the stuff we did here, I think there was a better way to go about it sometimes. Not that, and I always talk to some of the other guys we play with that I coach with now, and they're always, T Free wants us. He's ever since I started here, he's always pushed for the 9 300 days in the summer. You know, like we need to just gut them and kill them on the first Tuesday of the summer, 9 300s, and it's like, yeah, it's like that's a whole different discussion in and of itself. But that, like when we were doing that, sure, that was some hard stuff, but
Yeah.
it's like what there's really no correlation to that and anything that we do on the field. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I have no problem with doing things because they're hard as long as there's some type of, as long as that's not the only reason we're doing it. If we're doing
Yeah.
something just because it's hard, it's like there's a better way to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Even as you were explaining, sorry to cut you off, the mental Thursdays or whatever, you're like, some workouts are for speed, some workouts are to improve your squat, some workouts are for toughness.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm sure, I'm aware, but just to clarify, there's a ton of good stuff coming from that, where it's not just kill them. It's
Yeah.
not just like push them till they puke or like,
Yeah.
but it's like you're still getting stronger, you're still getting in shape from what you're doing. It has carryover to the sport.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's just like my first point here is like, it's really pretty, it's not complicated stuff in terms of how to properly make someone mentally stronger and tougher, right? I think a lot of the same principles we use in strength and conditioning to make someone stronger or to make someone faster, I think they're very similar, you know,
100%.
very similar methods to how to train somebody, train somebody's mind, right? So like what I have written down here is like, be smart, use common sense, and always keep things under your control as a coach. So like being smart is like one of those things. Like if it's this past week, we did a like an outside plate day called Ike Ball,
Oh.
right? So take plates outside, you
Yeah.
know, like, so we do a couple different different things that we normally would do in a plate day. But it's like, okay, like just as the coach, as the person that's running the workout, like one, be aware that like we're working out in 80-degree weather right now. You know, we're used to working out at least in the off season inside in the weight room, and it's, you know, temperature controlled most of the time, not always, but that's, yeah, and don't even start on that. But it's like just having that awareness. Okay, it's hot outside. We are not used to this heat. We're not used to working out in the heat. So it's like, yeah, like one, the list of exercises, a full set of a plate day was a lot shorter than normal. And two, like I'm giving them a decent amount of rest, more so than I would if we were inside. You know, so just like being aware of the situation, keeping in mind like what the kids are used to and what they're not used to, because it's the same thing. Our first Thursday that we do, if we make it through 2 full sets, like that's pretty good. Because one, I give them a lot longer rest. We're doing less reps on each exercise. We're a little bit less strict on like having everybody count, you know, and like each week we kind of ramp it up just a little bit. Again, like, and I have it on here. It's just like progressive overload, right? Like
That's it.
that's all. Like it's the same principle, just
Yeah.
applied in a different way. Like you don't have to. I think if you go into, as a coach, if you go into running like a mental workout with the mindset of kind of like you mentioned, like we're gonna kill these kids, like we're gonna make you know, we need at least 10 kids throwing up, and you know, we need to make a couple kids quit, and it's like if you go into it with that mentality, it's like you're gonna get someone hurt,
Yep.
you might lose your job, these kids are not gonna like you, you know, like. But again, if you change your perspective a little bit and look at it as something that, you know, we have a training goal for this. It's, and the training goal is not simply just to make it super hard or to make you throw up. Like this is super common topic, but it's like anybody can put a workout together that's gonna kill somebody.
It's easy.
You know what I mean?
It's
It's super easy.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to have some type of finesse and awareness of the situation of how to actually go about training the mental side of things.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think your point on it's similar, mental training or like training someone to get mentally tougher is similar to getting someone stronger, and it's similar to getting someone faster. And I think that's the case for trying to get better at anything.
Yeah.
Again, stress recovery adaptation. Any adaptation, it's like a similar progressive overload. It's a similar stress recovery response.
Yeah.
And we think obviously in a very strength and conditioning format, but like if you want to get better at playing the piano,
Yeah.
if you want to get better at jiu-jitsu, if you want to get better at speaking a foreign language. If you want to get better at anything, like that's the same, it's the same recipe.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's you gotta have some type of outline's not really the word, but you have to have some type of plan to and not just short term, not just that workout, but you got to look at it. How many weeks do we have? You know, how many mental days are we going to have within those weeks? And it's like, yeah, you build it up. That, and I always tell the kids, especially the first couple Thursdays, that if they show up consistently and they do every Thursday workout, by the end of that off season, length of time, the first Thursday that we do, if you do that first Thursday, on the last Thursday, it's going to be a breeze.
Yeah.
But when you're doing that first Thursday, it's like, this sucks. Like, this is horrible. Again, it goes back to just like the callous aspect.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything like that probably since last off season, so it's like you lose the ability to put up with those high intensity and high stress situations. But again, the more you do it, you show up consistently, we ramp it up just a little bit each week. By the time, like, my goal is always, at least with the plate day, my goal is at the end of the off season, like when we do a plate day, like we should be able to get through 3 full sets, and the one that we did outside was a little different because they had football stuff afterwards. So I think we made it through, I can't remember what we made it through, but like next week, if we do a plate day, we'll make it through 3 sets because we're almost at the end of the semester. But it's like, if you do 3 full sets at the beginning of the off season, like majority of the kids aren't going to make it through that.
It's going to be a mess.
You know what I mean? So it's like just having an idea and a long-term plan of how you want to train that, I think goes a long way. And the next thing I have is like just communicating with the athletes and letting them know, one, the reason behind what you're doing, like everything we're talking about right now. But like just being clear with them that this is not a punishment. Like these workouts are not, you guys didn't do anything wrong. We're not simply doing this just to punish you or simply doing it because it's fun for us to watch you guys go through all this hard stuff. But it's like, again, going back, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but like one of the main objectives of those workouts is to, one, expose ourselves to adversity, and 2, see how we react. Like that's really what we're looking for in these workouts, at least with the mental toughness. It's, one, can you get yourself there? Because a lot of kids don't even know what high intensity work is. You know what I mean? A lot of kids don't realize really how strong they are and how much they can go through. And that, I think that goes back to just the trap of comfort.
Yeah.
But I think communicating with the kids goes a long way, and just letting them know, like, hey, we are not getting joy from like watching you guys suffer.
Yeah.
Like we do, at least myself, I do get some joy of like seeing kids like just face it head on, you know what I mean? And just show up every day and being like, I know this is going to suck, but like, I'm all about whatever this program is. And like, so I'm going to be here every day. Like that does bring me some joy, because I think you and I were very similar to that. Like when we were here, we were like, man, like it doesn't really matter like what gets thrown at us. Like we're gonna do whatever we have to do to make it through. So I think that there's something powerful in that. But again, just like communicating with the kids and letting them know like the purpose of what you're doing, and the reasoning behind why we have this whole Mental Thursday off-season workouts. Like I think that goes a long way in helping the kids understand. Because I think if you don't communicate that, the kids are like, man, these guys are assholes. Like this dude is just putting us through this. Like for what? Like we're not. This doesn't have anything to do with football, or we never work out. I don't carry a plate around on the football field. It's like, so these guys are just doing this just because they enjoy seeing us suffer. It's like, no, like you have to communicate, especially with a high school kid. You have to communicate with them why you're doing it, and also show that you care about them in a sense. Like it's not, again, if we're doing forward lunges and someone's doing a reverse lunge, and we'll finish that whole set, we're going to do 8 lunges each leg, and then all right, hey, someone's stepping backwards, got to go again. And it's like the reason we're doing that is is to see how other people react to that. It's the same thing that's going to happen in games. So it's like, I think that communication aspect goes a long way.
100%. That's something I think I was not great at.
Yeah.
It's something I have to work on. I'm better at it than I was, but like I'm like, put together a workout, or maybe it's like a tougher day. Maybe it's to work on getting faster, which is gonna have long rest and
Yeah.
all this stuff. But if I don't explain that to an athlete at any level, high school, college, whatever, it's not gonna have as good of carryover.
Yeah.
I would have these workouts and loved it. It's gonna be a great workout, and they just weren't super into it or didn't give it the focus I feel like it deserved.
Yeah.
It's like, why wasn't it? They have no idea why we're doing what we're doing. Like, that's on me to communicate it. I think in any aspect, if the athlete's attention is, all right, this is what we're working on.
Yeah.
The goal today, I'm going to get stronger. My muscles are going to get bigger over time from this plate workout or whatever it is. But the goal of today and my focus is on pushing it mentally.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough workout, and I'm going to do every rep. I'm going to do it as best as I can. I'm going to count out loud. Coach Rob's going to call out someone for not doing the correct exercise. We're going to have to redo it, and I'm going to be okay with it. I'm going to push. But it's similar to like bodybuilding and mind-muscle connection.
Yeah.
It's completely different, but similar in the sense that if my focus on every rep of this bicep curl is to squeeze this muscle. What was the C.T. Fletcher? It's like, I command you to grow.
Yeah.
But like, if you're trying to make this muscle work, and research has found that actually helps better than just going through the motion. Same weight, same effort level, but if your focus is on this muscle and squeezing it, it's going to work better. There's a study on, it was people and they're in fMRI, and they're feeling basically like Braille.
Okay.
And it's like it's almost like a treadmill for your finger.
Yeah.
And you're feeling like these bumps pass. Two groups. One group is doing it, and they have to click a button, or they have to hit a button whenever there's like a music or a tone, like a ringing noise in the room. They would hit the buzzer when they thought the tone changed.
Yeah.
And they're feeling these bumps run across their finger as they're doing this. There's another group, same thing, tone in the room, they got the button, they're feeling these bumps. But they would hit the button whenever they felt the size of the bumps change.
Okay.
They got bigger or smaller. The group that was focused on feeling the bumps, the sensory cortex that feels with your fingers, that area of the brain grew. Because their focus was on the bumps. Their focus is on feeling the size of the bumps. Their attention and focus is on it. I think us as coaches, if you can put the athlete's attention on our goal for the workout, that's going to accelerate the improvement in that.
Yeah,
if that
100%.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that in mind. Like, just the whole, like you said, it doesn't have to be the mental aspect, but just getting focused on whatever the objective of the training session is that day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's important to communicate that with them, and just to kind of put them in the right mental space to handle it as well. Like a couple weeks ago, after one of the Thursday workouts, like talked to the kids about like, you have to, if you want to get the most out of these like hard ass workouts, you have to like make a conscious decision that when you show up and do these workouts that you're going to like you said, you're going to do everything that you can to do your best on each exercise and to not give in. Because it's like, if you show up, you know it's going to be hard, but you don't fully tell yourself that you're going to make it through and kill this workout, you're not going to get nearly as much out of it as the kid that is like, took 20 seconds before walking into the room and saying like, hey, I know what I'm here for. And it's almost like the difference of attacking a workout and just kind of like showing up and going through a workout. And you can see it like within the first 10 minutes of a workout. You can see who's attacking it and who's just here because they have to be. And still, I still give props to those kids that show up just because they have to be, because there's a lot of kids that, choose the opposite route of not showing up. So it's like, even if you're not fully attacking the workout, it's like you're still here getting the work in, but you can look around the room and see who who is here to like actually get after it, and who's here just to like survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you can see that in competition too. You know, I think some of that translates to competition where
For
it's
sure.
like, hey, I'm just competing and I'm not really out here to like give it all I got. I'm just out here because I enjoy playing the sport. I want to be a part of something, or I'm playing with my friends or whatever. But you can clearly see who has the other mindset of like, I'm here to like get after some shit. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with a workout that you see
Yeah.
in a game.
And you probably still see those athletes that show up and it's a hard day, and they're here because they're supposed to be, or, you know, how you explained it. They'll probably still get better over
Yeah.
time. The people that do the sport because their friends are doing it, they're not, you know, like here to win.
Yeah.
They probably still get better at the sport over time.
Yeah.
But if your focus is on, I'm attacking this workout, or
Yeah.
I love this sport and I really want to get a lot better at this for my team or for my college aspirations or whatever, that's when I think the growth really accelerates.
Yeah, you get the most out of it in that way.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about this as well, just kind of along with this topic, is like there's a balance of, because, you know, we'll have kids when we come into these workouts, we'll have kids that have done 3 years of these workouts, and we'll have kids that are like freshmen this year and have never done a workout like this before. So it's like, how do you find the balance of making it a true mental Thursday, but you know, you don't want to go too easy where the kids that really aren't all in can make it through it, but you don't want to make it too hard where the kids that are all the way in are like, man, like forget this, like I'm not doing all this, you know. So it's like, just there's some gray area of how to set that in place and how to find a good balance. Like I wrote it here, like the way I thought about it the other day when I was just jotting these down is like, you want it to be just hard enough that people are scared enough to maybe skip it, right? But you also want it to be doable, especially if you're consistent in your training, right? So like, again, Snyder football is a little bit different, but one of the things that is unique about Snyder football is like, if you don't come to the off-season workouts, like you're not going to be on the team, you know. And a lot of kids think that we're lying about that until they show up, you know, like to get their pads, and we're like, bro, we haven't
Where
seen
have
you
you
in
been?
4 months. Like, try again next year, you know. But again, it's something that I think just finding that balance of setting it up where it's like you want to create the workout to where it almost, you know, it forces those kids to feel the feelings that we were talking about of being scared, being nervous, being anxious. But you also want it to be at a point where it's like, hey, this is doable. Like anybody can do these workouts. You know, it's going to be hard. It's going to suck. But if you're really, this kind of what I ended this thought with was like, the whole goal of these Thursday workouts, or one of the main goals of the Thursday workouts, is to see who is really like all the way in. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of kids, especially with Snyder football, that want to play Snyder football until they realize everything that goes into it, you know? So it's like, we got to set something up where it's like, yeah, we're going to test out, okay, are you truly like all the way in for this? Like, are you bought into this whole program and what we're doing? Or are you just trying to, you know, say that you played Snyder football? And there's a lot of kids that do that. But I think one of the main purposes of the Thursday workouts and all the stuff we do in the summer is to test your commitment to the program. You know what I mean? There's a lot of schools that don't do it that way. There's a lot of schools that, you know, kid doesn't show up to any training, but they're the best athlete, one of the best athletes in the school, and they're like, yeah, man, come on, man, like we're gonna need you. You know,
Go right ahead.
You don't have to come to practice. You know, you skip whenever you want. I know they don't say that, but you know what I mean. Whereas like it's here, like I've seen it firsthand where we've turned down some like great natural athletes, but that just don't care. Like they don't show up to anything, and it's like having conversations with some of the other football coaches is obviously we're not going to let that kid that hasn't come to anything but is a really good athlete, you know, join the team, because it's like, what kind of message are we giving the kids that might not be as naturally talented but have been here for every workout, haven't missed anything? It's like, those are the kids we want. You know, like we can turn those kids into, we can teach them how to play football. But the kid that is super naturally talented and not super bought in or not bought in at all to what we're doing, like, it's going to be hard to train that kid to be bought all the way in. Whereas if you have a kid that's bought all the way in but is an average athlete, it's like, I'm taking that kid 10 times out of 10,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? So,
What was the thing you wrote? They might think about quitting. You want the workout to be?
You want it to be just hard enough that people are scared enough to maybe skip it.
And like the comfort zone thing, not right in the, but they're right around, just outside their comfort zone. And that's, I think, where growth happens.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot, right? Because again, you don't want it to be unattainable. You don't want it to be out of reach. You don't want it to be like, man, like, I'll show up and do everything they ask me and I'm still not completing these workouts.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, again, we try to communicate with the kids like, anybody in this school building can do these workouts if they really want to. If they're truly committed to being part of this program, like, anybody can do it. Not to say it's going to be easy or that it's not going to be super challenging, but it's like you find that sweet spot of where a kid starts to get thoughts of like, man, like, I don't think I want to do this, you know, or they go to one and it was super hard and they're like, man, I'm never doing that shit again, you know, and it's like, that's all right, but it's like the again, it's almost like a test of like how bought in really are you, you know, and if you're not all the way bought in, it's like, yeah, man, like, no hard feelings, but like, it's just not the program for you.
Yeah.
You know?
And I know I keep taking it to non-strength conditioning stuff.
Yeah.
But as you're explaining, like, that's the sweet spot. Having a cat growing up, like, have a cat and maybe like a laser pointer, or like a cat toy or a string, and the cat's laying right there and you got the laser pointer and you're putting it right in front of the cat. They don't even really care. It's too easy.
Yeah.
It's not unattainable, but it's just like right there. It's not hard to get. If you put it on the ceiling tile, not even paying attention. It's too far away. There's no shot. I have no chance. If you start playing with it, it's back and forth. It's close, but they go for it and it moves, and sometimes they get it. It's like, that's the sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I forget where I read this somewhere about similar, like when you're training a cat or when you're playing with a cat, because I've had cats most of my life, and it's like, yeah, it's the same thing, kind of like you said, like you want it to be attainable, but you also don't, like if you have a laser pointer, you want the cat to sometimes catch the laser. You don't want them to never catch it, because at a certain point it's like, well, if I never get the fulfillment of, you know, catching the toy or catching the laser, it's like, yeah, at a certain point it's like, well, I never get any true fulfillment out of it, you know. But again, like you said, you don't want to put it right in front of them. They just have to grab it. So it's like, same thing with the workouts, right? Like, you don't want it to be a super easy workout that anybody can do, but you also want it to be catchable. You want it to be attainable, where it's like, man, like, I really just made it through a workout that I never thought I'd be able to.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of benefit to that too. So the last thing I have here, and I think this is one of the most important notes of this whole talk, but the way that I wrote it down is that you have to live it to be able to ask others to do it, right? It's like, if you're a coach, and if I were in the situation that I'm in right now, like coaching situation, but I never did anything that made me uncomfortable, or I never did anything that pushed me outside of my comfort zone, like, I could still ask these kids to do X, Y, and Z and to challenge themselves, but I think the buy-in is going to be much less than it would be if, you know, the kids see me running outside in the heat, or the kids see me put up stuff about jiu-jitsu, or I talk to a lot of kids about jiu-jitsu, because a lot of them are, not a lot of them, but get a decent amount of questions about just like what it is and how to get into it and X, Y, and Z. So it's like, I think just setting that example of like, hey, I'm not just asking you guys to do this to give myself pleasure to watch you guys suffer through something. It's like, no, like, I think you have to let the kids know, or at least let them see that, like, you are living the same stuff that you're asking them to do. Like, I definitely don't do any plate workouts anymore. You know what I mean? Like, but again, there are things that I do to hold myself accountable, just as I ask the kids to do. You know what I mean? And I think that's pretty common, but I think it makes sense when you think about it, but I think there's a lot of coaches out there that necessarily don't live that life and still ask kids to, you know, live a certain life that they're not living themselves. You know what I mean?
From that standpoint, but also like a technical standpoint. Like if the weight starts getting heavy for you on squat and you start making it not as deep. It's a higher squat every
Yeah.
time. It's like, no. This is what the standard is,
Yeah.
and I live up to it as well.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much how it has to be. Even like a parenting standpoint.
Yeah.
Not like do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
It's like no. I live this. My life is at this standard as well.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it.
And I think there are parents out there with that example that you can still ask a child to do, what or what you think is best for them, and maybe not live like that yourself. And I think you can still like have some success, like,
Sure.
raising a kid like that. Same thing. I think if you're, a strength coach that, always stays in their comfort zone, and regardless of what it is, like if you're a power lifter and that's all you do, like, sure, you can still challenge yourself with that, but do you ever truly get out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
Like, and getting out of your comfort zone as a power lifter could be like something as simple as like running a mile, or like, doing a handstand against the wall and hold, whatever it is, something that's different.
Or doing more than 5 reps.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, and resting less than 5 minutes, right? Like but again, it's like I think you can still have success as a coach even if you don't live that lifestyle. But I think you get so much better buy-in and commitment, and I think the kids are going to respect you a lot more if they know that, the person that's asking them to do X, Y, and Z. And we haven't really talked about this, but like, one, I think it goes a long way to have done that in the past.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, one, you lived it in here before.
Which that goes a long way too. That because again, if I say I didn't go to Snyder and I came here and was working here, and I heard about these plate days, but I've never done a plate day, and like I was putting these kids through this hard ass workout that I've never done, but at least the kids at Snyder, like they're gonna call you out on it.
Yeah.
They're gonna say something to you like,
Yeah.
oh, when are you gonna jump in?
Yeah.
So like now, like, I kind of have an out. Like, man, I did this shit when you guys were in diapers. Like joke with them like that. Like, but there is a lot of truth to that. Like knowing that literally the same exact, not the exact program, but a very similar program. The standards have really stayed the same since we were here till it is now. So like just knowing that, hey, my coach, did all this stuff. And I think, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but some of the stuff we did was just hard to be hard.
Yeah.
Like with really no reasoning behind it. So I always tell them like, yeah, it's, you guys got it better than we did. Like the stuff that we do is still really hard, but like the running in the summer, like the max aerobic speed stuff is a good example, because it's like, yeah, when we were here, like we would just run shuttles, which is just kind of like based off of like, I don't really know, like experience of running kids through shuttles. You figure out a time that you think is good.
Yep.
It's not really, it's kind of an arbitrary like thing that you base it off of. But like with max aerobic speeds, it's like, this is based on your actual, results that we ran at the beginning of the summer. So it's like being able to communicate that with the kids and let them know like, hey, we're there again, to go back to, there's a reason that we're doing this stuff. Like this is based on something. It's not just, hey, we're going to do this to try to strictly make us mentally tougher. It's like, sure, sometimes that's part of the goal, but there's always other things behind it that are objectives of the workout as well.
Yes.
So I don't know. That's really all I have for this. I don't know if you have any like.
You said it like we've been talking for 10 minutes. I guess that's all we got today.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I could talk about this
forever.
Forever. I'm trying to think of like good book recommendations. You had a couple. You ever read How Bad Do You Want It? I forget who it's by, but it's a really good book. It uses different examples of like athletes from throughout history that have broken barriers and done things that people didn't think were possible, like the 4 minute mile is a great example. It's in there. But that's a really good book, like kind of around this topic. You already mentioned it, but Grit is a really good book.
It.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Well, you mentioned Angela Duckworth, the author, but wrote a book called Grit.
Really good book.
She has a really good TED Talk too on the same So if you don't want to commit to the book, her TED Talk's not in 15, 20 minutes.
TED Talks, love them.
Yeah, but maybe check that out if you're interested in this stuff. What other books did you mention? The Comfort Crisis.
Comfort Crisis, again, I forget the author, which I feel bad about.
David Goggins.
David Goggins, and he's crazy. He's a bit crazy.
Yeah.
But you'll see, like, he came from a place where, like, mentally, like, his comfort zone was, like, he had no ability to push himself. So he would just lie.
Yeah.
He'd lie to everyone. He would cheat in school. And he just silencing his inner bitch and like things like that, and grew it into what he is now, which is out of this world.
Yeah.
But again, there's small progression, and sometimes he took big progressions, and he dealt with the consequences of it with injuries. But yeah, anyway, another good book on that, and like no science to it. This is just a military guy that did some crazy stuff.
Yeah, and the same thing, kind of similar to that, like that podcast that you mentioned with Huberman and him and David Goggins is. There's a lot of really good stuff. I think David Goggins does a good job of, like you said, he's crazy. Like he is out there, you know, and he'll be the first to tell you that. You know what I mean? Like he's aware of that. But it's also, I think he does, at least with his book and the talks that I've heard him in, he does a good job of, one, being aware of that, and two, making his material like applicable to just the everyday person that's not, you know, mentally as disciplined and as strong and extreme as he is, you know?
Yeah.
So even with him doing all those, you know, 100, 200 mile runs and doing all that crazy stuff, there's still a lot of things, at least in his book, that you can take and apply to just your everyday life, you know? So I think those are good resources if anybody's interested. And then there's a ton more out there.
Yes.
Anybody interested, just off the top of our head, of just like the mental aspect of training and mental toughness. And I think Jocko Willink is another good one that's
another military guy.
Yeah, another military guy. He's got Extreme Ownership, which is a great book. And then just his, you know, all the podcasts and talking that he does, I think those are all good people to kind of learn from.
Yep.
So that was good. We'll have something else next week. We'll have to come up with a topic next week throughout our list of topics that we have. But I think it's good to have something like one, you know, overarching idea of what we talk about, and just kind of, you know, pick and choose from there. So you got anything else?
No, that was perfect. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I think we're good, and we'll be back next week.
Yep.
Sound good?
Yep.
Peace.